All right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So
Yeah, it shows the report.
do any of you mind if I record this and share some of this? If somebody else wants to look at it, I'm going to post it. Because some of the people who were here said they couldn't make it today and asked me to record it if I could.
Sure, no problem.
Fine with us.
No problem.
If something comes up that you feel uncomfortable with, tell me because I can pause it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. First, let's start off with you guys telling me, we talked about those steering committee things last week and the different elements and all of that. And get out your materials if you would. Wendy, did you get a copy of those materials from last week by any chance?
No, I didn't.
Okay. What is your email address?
It's EPC_ORG@outlook.com.
All right. I'm going to real quick, if y'all don't mind, I am going to see if I can find that email and forward it to you that had the things, okay?
Okay. I appreciate that.
All right, give me just 1 second.
Did you send it from
Yeah.
the work account or?
No, I sent it to my email.
Oops, skipped in James.
Let's see. Sent to. Sent. I'll try to do this as fast as I can, but I am not the absolute best at this kind of thing. Where is it? Hard. Chill train. There we go. Okay. And it is EPC.
Yes.
C underscore RG ORG at outlook.com. All right, here we go. Let me know. Can you tell there if you get it? Or I know you're on your phone, so you may can't.
Well, I'm also on my laptop as well, so
Okay.
I'm in my email.
All right, well, it just got sent. I am lifeway2@AOL.com.
Yeah, I have your email address. Okay, I have it.
You have it? All right.
Yes.
Good, good. Well, those are just some materials that we're going to be working off of. The first thing we're working with is something called steering committees.
Okay.
And the steering committee, you need one for your family group and you need one for your users group. You have separate meetings and there's one in each one of them. The steering committee will vary everywhere from 2 to 12 different people. If you get to needing 12 people on your steering committee, you got about 110 people in your meeting. In which case it's time to split it up. It's too many. But it is the group that you depend on to actually do the main part of the relationship work. Recovery and movement down the recovery road depends on relationship. So you actually, rather than just hope it happens, you, 1, try and be a leader in it, and 2, you actually structure it. We figured out ways, and tools to put together and how to put them together so that you structure those relationship units. They give you eyes and ears in the group. They also give you a mouth in the group. And what I'm talking about there is whatever's happening with different people. Not everybody, if you have 40 people or 50 people in that group, there's no way you can keep up with all of those different life experiences that are going on at the moment. So you got to have some folks that can kind of sift through stuff and bring things to you, you know, that are going on, and so that you can guide the group as a whole to best address the needs of the individuals. All right. So we talked at some length about that last week. I would love to hear from Michelle and Jim. You guys, James, you sent me an email, which I thought was really cool last week. Tell me how it went. Tell me what you thought last week.
Well, last week went really well. The past since 2 weeks ago, since you and I started talking, and we kind of went on the, you know, to kind of get the parents to have a more, I don't know, having a topic discussion as well as a check-in with the parents. It's gone really well. The parents have been really good at kind of directing themselves once the topic's been introduced and sharing their successes and also their failures. You know, so my last week, so it's been going really, really well.
Right.
And you know, I've approached 2 people, because right now currently we have maybe on average 4 to 5 parents per meeting, because this has just started off.
That's
you know,
good. That's great.
Yeah. So I asked a couple parents. I have one parent who's on board. The other one has not responded in the past 2 weeks.
To be on the steering committee.
To be on the steering committee. I
Right.
tried to get a steering committee going. So one of the parents is definitely, she said she'd be willing to help any way possible. But last week's email was in regards to, as they were discussing the topic, which was boundaries. You know, my question as a facilitator or facilitator trainee was, you know, at what point in time am I able to give not a personal, you know, not make it personal about me, but just a surface interjection about what's going on, such as, you know, on the topic of boundaries, of maybe a little insight that I have and not making it personal. Is that okay? Is that not okay, kind of thing?
The answer is yes, it is okay. All right. Especially and let me phrase back to you what I understand the question to be, and you tell me if I'm on.
Okay.
You're asking, in those situations where there's something going on that actually you don't have personal experience with, but you have some insight, is it okay for you to share that?
Right. Well, I do have personal experience, but I would not want to make it personal, because this is not about me. This is about the parents in general, you know, and so it's kind of like how I saw boundaries working, you know, how I see that why boundaries are important for not only the parent, but also the youth as well. The you know,
Yeah.
their kids, what, you know, so it is somewhat personal, but it wouldn't be like, hey, you know, this is what's happened in my life, you know, with my kid. It would be more or less a blanket, like, hey, I see boundaries are important because
You're talking about extrapolating your personal experience to a situation that you haven't actually been in. Is that right? Am I understanding correct?
No, I think James has a unique perspective because he was a teenage addict who had parents.
I thought he was
who
still a
tried really
teenager.
hard. He looks it.
teenager, no hair.
Up here. Yeah.
I think I'm a teenager, but yeah.
So do I.
So it's lessons that he has had coming from that perspective, that he's trying to, I think, he's trying to convey or pass along to the parents that might be useful to them. And what he's trying to say is he's trying not to make it personal, but maybe it's okay to make it personal.
It actually, to come out of your own personal stuff is always okay. I mean, anytime, that is always okay. The questions, the harder questions come on the other side when you haven't actually got personal experience. You're a peer recovery counselor, you know, you're not a therapist, you're not those guys LCDCs, peer recovery count, those guys are kind of licensed to step outside of their own personal stuff and bring things to bear, tools, therapy tools to bear that they didn't ever have done with them, to them. They've never done it maybe themselves. But that's not your situation. You are coming from this peer recovery basic, I believe. Even the LPCs and LMSWs and LCDCs and all those guys, even they have to be careful about when they step outside of their own personal experience to make. The big issue is informing people where you're coming from. You know,
Gotcha.
that is where the secret lies, to say, well, I've never gone through that myself, you know what I mean? But here's something that might relate to the situation.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's good.
By
Yep.
the way, I think I covered this last time. I will cover this 1,000 times as we're going through trainings. You're going to have less than perfect days where you're not going to do all this stuff. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to do something. You're going to, why did I do that? You're going to lose your temper. Have to come back and say, hey, I'm sorry. I said that. You know, it's going to happen. So be ready to adjust to those kind of things. We're just human beings. We're not Dr. Spock or Mr. Spock, not Dr. Spock. Mr. Spock was the Enterprise guy. We're more James Kirk, you know, and he had to apologize all the time. That's us. But there are some things that you get used to saying. You get used to saying, actually, I haven't gone through that myself. However, and you can say, I saw this go on with somebody else, or I remember a guy that I knew that this happened, you know. The thing that we can hold on to, though, that is not, this is not negotiable, all right? And that is the disease itself. Disease is a neurological disease with psychological and behavioral outcomes. It is a brain disease with psychological and behavioral outcomes. When people start to stray away from that is when we start to give up percentages of success points. Every time. I just got out of a session. This young man was telling me when he was a sophomore in high school that he went to a doctor, told him, I'm having trouble focusing. I'm like, and my answer to that is, well, you were a sophomore in high school. You could have been a senior in college and have trouble focusing. You know, having trouble focusing, you're a human being. You have trouble focusing. That's what human beings do, you know, and we get better and better by practicing. But he said that to his doctor. His doctor loaded him up with ADHD meds and began the disease, you know?
Right.
And he was an MD. He was trained to do that. Oh, if you're having trouble focusing, take this pill. That'll make it all okay, you know? It was the beginning of the disease for him. I'm saying that in relationship to what we're talking about because that's not what happened to me. I was still able to talk to this young man about that. What happened to me was I smoked some dope and I loved it. You know, what I can talk to him about is the disease.
Yes.
And the disease began at that moment. It's a non-negotiable, you know. These substances cause brain damage, period, you know.
Right.
And so to answer your question a lot more than probably you wanted. Yeah.
Oh, no, this has all been great insight. It's what I was looking for. So, no.
That's what I envision these things being. I envision them being discussions, you know, more than lectures. I don't want to lecture. I really don't want to. I do it, but I don't want to, you know.
Yeah. So our next meeting is tonight. It's every Wednesday. It's every Wednesday evening, and the topic is already. I put out there at the end of the meeting that I put out there. You know, if they had any topics, if any of the parents had topics, to email Michelle or I, and they sent instantly. That night we had two or three.
Awesome.
And so tonight's going to be about trust. And
okay, here's a note for steering committee as your group grows. Okay?
Yes.
you got 2 or 3 topics sent to you. All right. What that means is they have 2 or 3 hot issues that are going on in the group. All right.
Okay.
Save your list, all right, and see if it shifts from week to week. What is hot and needs to be talked about, of course, will shift. You know, what's hot today isn't next week. But let's say you had 20 people in your group. Okay. When you have a good steering committee and you're working real good, really on top of it and everything, you can say, this week we're going to divide up into 3 meetings. Okay. And you pick a steering committee person for each one of those different topics. You can even, the facilitator can even say to certain members in the groups, we're going to have 3 meetings. One is on stick with winners. One is on first step. One is on doing an inventory. You know, how do you do an inventory? You may know which members in the group, because you're getting feedback from your steering committee, need to go into which meeting will be most appropriate. You can actually go by and say, I really want you to go to that meeting this week. Okay. This is where we start to separate. The APG meeting is not out. AA is not NA. It is not Celebrate Recovery. It is an actual guidance group. All right, or guidance set of guidance groups. It's not a therapy group. Right. It's a guidance group, and there's kind of a fine line in there. You are moving people to things that will help them at the moment. This is case management at its finest. You know,
like that. Yeah.
So keep that in mind as these multiple topics come in.
Okay.
Okay. Wendy, what do you guys have going on here? As I'm talking, does it strike any bells of anything that's happening?
Yeah, so of course we are really grassroots. You know, when we initially spoke with you about starting an APG, it was, okay, you just start one. So, you know, Leah and I got together and we started one. And so it has grown. So the groups are ages 13 to 18 in terms of youth. And it's youth that, you know, have a substance use disorder or mental health disorder. And so it's more of a support group for those individuals, and families are coming to the group as well. So
how many do you have?
So we have anywhere from 6 to 10 youth that show up consistently, and then we may have 5 parents. And because initially when the group started, because it was a small group, we didn't separate the parents from the youth.
Yeah, I understand.
And so as it's grown, there's been a few times we just kind of play it by ear with the separation. If we don't have, you know, more than 5 youth, we'll keep the group together, the adults and the, and it really has worked. And when the gentleman was sharing their own experiences, we have adults in the group that also share their experience in the group. And it's almost like they need the group more than the youth.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have, so what we do is at the group, it's from 5 to 7:30. When we come in, we have food, so we provide the food. And yeah, I mean,
don't crawl into that group when their blood sugar is low. They'll tear you up, man, and each other and everything else.
Yeah,
you know,
we
guys.
Have wings.
Oh yeah, well I'm coming.
What night?
Yeah.
What night is it? It's Monday night.
we have right. We have it on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh,
so, and we meet at 2 different locations. And so from 5, like I said, it's 5 to 7:30 when we first get there. From 5 to 6, we're socializing, we're playing games, and you know, everybody is participating with that portion. And then the last hour and a half is when we get into a group. We have group topics, whether it's bullying, boundaries, coping strategies. So different topics that we come up with. And it's been great. So in trying to stay with the model, the only difference is we don't have an inpatient substance abuse program. So our APG is really the support group.
Yeah.
That's fine. Actually, Lifeway doesn't have an inpatient model either. You know, in fact, none of the Houston APG programs right now have one.
Okay.
But there are a multitude, there's about 4 for adolescents, about 4 different residential elements in the area that are used to working with the APG model. If I refer somebody to the park here, that's an adolescent or an adult, they know that their part in this is not the main thing. Their part is just to do the residential element, get them back to us, keep the family involved with us while they're doing the residential, because we're going to be with them for the next 18 months to 4 years, you know.
Right.
That's what the research says, that we're going to be the case manager. Their person is not the case manager. We are the case manager, and we've built those relationships with these residential places over time. So now some of them have grown at times. 1992, Lifeway had 4 of its own residential programs and 4 high schools. You know, it's all over the place. Managed care came in and blew everything up. So, you know, but different places are doing different things that are alternative care programs. What we talked about last week that James and Michelle are talking about, that they actually started putting together, is this thing, this steering committee thing. You're going to find that it's going to be real helpful for you, and you want to pick a couple for each group as soon as possible. The other thing is, I heard, and this I'm sure is going to be appropriate to everybody. Actually, we may do this in the place of, and we'll start it today, in the place of moving to the family program. I want to talk to you guys about reaching out. Okay, reaching out, building your group, making it bigger. All right, what are the tools? What are the tools? I have to know a little bit, just a little bit though, about how you're organized though. Since there's 2 of you here right now, we'll take your 2 situations, because each APG situation is a little different, how they're financed, how they're staffed, et cetera, who's doing what. So let me take, you tell me more about y'all's each individual situation, how you're financed and staffed. And I don't care if that finance means it isn't, that's fine. Doesn't make any difference.
Right.
That's typical. I hear that more than anything else. And have heard it over the years, all the way to Rise Recovery in San Antonio has $1.5 million budget every year, and they have no residential element. You know, so it, you know, it just varies from one thing to another. So tell me about, Wendy, since you were talking a second ago, go ahead and begin with exactly how that, where's your staff coming from? How much time do you have them, et cetera?
Yeah, so again, the groups are for 2.5 hours, and it is led by a licensed clinician. I'm a licensed clinical addiction specialist, so I facilitate the groups. We also have another licensed clinical addiction specialist that co-facilitates. And so we're not paid, we're volunteer.
Okay.
So it's only the 2 of us. We have some interns that come in and assist with facilitating the activities, you know, the games.
Right. Are the interns peer recovery people, or what are they?
No, they are in a master's program for counseling.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
However, we are, you know.
Are they getting internship hours towards their next accreditation of some type? License?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For their master's program.
All right.
And so their volunteers, families come in and volunteer. Our food, we basically pay for that. So I, out of my pocket.
All right, let me ask you this. Are you able, in the people that are coming in, are you able to pick up some individual counseling and some things like that in your own practice? Are they coming some from your practice and also going some to your practice?
Yes.
And do they pay something for that? So there's some monies that are flowing in that that way?
So
it's okay if it is, by the way. Everybody gets all, I'm telling you, it's totally,
right.
way okay.
So now I practice at an organization separate from where the APG is.
All right.
And so the APG is practicing under my nonprofit organization. So I founded a nonprofit, Empowered Citizens. And so what I have done in the past is try to get funded through grants.
Yeah. Have you had any success?
No, not yet, but
You've been turned down.
Well, I've been asked to resubmit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they like the model APG, the peer-to-peer support, but there were some things that I needed to kind of pan out, like how long. They asked me, well, how long is the program? Because this was working with juvenile justice system, and so they wanted just concrete information as to how the program is going to be ran. And of course, yeah.
The organization that you work for, all right, is that a practice?
It is a mental health outpatient.
Is it a privately owned, or is it a government facility, or is it what?
It's privately owned, and the funding is Medicaid funding and state funding.
All right. Your groups, socioeconomically, where do they come from? Your APG
low
groups.
socioeconomic, yeah.
Okay. All right. LSEs. All right. All right. Okay. The reason why I asked all that is you're going to have to figure out who's going to do the reaching out.
Right.
The reaching out into the community. When you described trying to get the funding, what you described is a job. Filling out all that paper, fleshing out that plan, going back and forth, talking to these guys and all that kind of stuff. All right. Let me, everybody, it always boils down to funding to some degree. So one of the things that is least understood about a good alternative peer group model is, and you hit it right on the head, they asked you for how long is the program going to last. All right. All right. The answer is, and the answer that works best for the real question is, how does all of this get funded? How do we continue to get funded? How do, not me, the organization you're talking to, they're also worried about their funding. The organization you work for is worried about their funding, all right? Those times when we have, and still there are APGs out there that have these residential elements, the question comes up, how are they paying for that? Okay. One of the massively misunderstood parts of the alternative peer group program is this. If you case manage for the period of time that research says it takes to stabilize from this disease, the 18 months to 4 years, certain things happen economically that are different than if you don't do that. All right? You see it all the time, and they do too, but they don't know what they're looking at, frankly. What happens all the time in the present structures that are out there is somebody comes in, they're there for 30 days, 60 days, maybe even 6 months. Okay? 6 months of case management. 6 months is not enough to stabilize.
Right.
It's not. So then, and they're not working with the families a lot of time, not effectively, if they're doing it at all. They come in, they hit one of the relapse points. We don't have research on this, but my feeling is there's about 6 of them in that first 18 months to 4 years. About 6 relapse points come along.
Mm-hmm.
If they hit a relapse point, they go back out. The family is not kept plugged in. Go back out. They get loaded. They go, oh, that didn't work. I'm going to go over to this other program.
Right.
All right. They're called program hopping. All right.
Right.
Not only do we lose the recovery capital, this first organization is built up by knowing the family and knowing the way the disease is organized, and the relationship that's built up between the counselors and that organization and this client and that family. Not only did they lose that, but the organization that was collecting Medicaid, private insurance, sliding scale fee, or whatever it is, however they're rigged, guess what? They lose monies for whatever needs to be applied at that time. Because it might be, and that relapse, it really needs to go back into IOP for a few weeks. Okay?
Right.
If he
Right.
pops over here, that money goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one area financially that doesn't work as well in the old model, but can't always get it across to them, you know. And that's one of the reasons we're doing these kind of things, because folks don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
The other area is this: if you're running a powerful parent group and you're reaching out to the community,
Right.
you know what it means?
Yeah.
More clients.
That's right.
You know what that means? More funds.
Right.
Yes, you know, and nothing is more powerful in creating new clients than a powerful family group out there saying, my kid is back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because everybody's talking about it out there, because everybody's kids going down. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of disease out there, huge amount. So putting these things together will help to fund it, and the reaching out element. In your case, what I would be inspecting, because here's what it takes to run those meetings. It takes
Mm-hmm.
about 4 hours a week to really do a pretty good job of just running the meeting. It takes about a meeting, let's say one meeting. If you had one meeting instead of 2, it takes about 4 hours a week, okay? If you can work that into the budget of
Mm-hmm.
if you're approaching somebody for funding, you have to work it into that budget. If you're working
Right.
for an agency, you have to explain it to the guys who have to write checks at the agency, why they should set you free or somebody free for those 4 hours a week. Do that. Make it make sense to them. You have to show the economic return that's going to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Why? So if you're putting that's for if you were approaching your agency. If you're approaching a funding group, like what you were talking about, and they want you to rewrite.
Right.
So as you're rewriting this thing, you want to hit on this. We operate for 18 months to 4 years, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And here's the income at these relapse points that are going to be produced at different points, you know, if they're interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not, you want to talk to them about that this is going to be, that you're going to be, that from the next 18 months to 4 years, they're going to know this funding group has been a part of their recovery. You know, that there will be points and all that. You have to think these directions. Let me tell you, there's a lot of ways to cover the expenses of these programs besides going to a funding agency.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the food that you guys are buying. All right?
Right.
Go talk to, or ask your family group. Does anybody have a contact with, a taco
Restaurant?
place or a restaurant or something, or, and start putting together and let them come in and cater it, or throw something down. A lot of them will do that. It's a real inexpensive way to advertise their stuff. The problem is it takes time to do that. Well, you don't
Yeah.
have that time, but you know who does and has energy? Family.
The parents.
A
Yeah.
parent. You got,
Right.
I've had kids come in with deals. They're real cocky. Say, hey man, I'm in a drug, and it's good for them. They feel
Yeah.
good about it, you know what I mean? And they need those good feelings and everything. That's one for that's. I'm just giving you that as an example.
Sure.
Very, very common. We rarely, if ever, have any rent to pay. Never.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we always find a church that'll let us use
Yeah.
their rooms, and it's really
Right. And that's what we're doing now.
good.
Yeah.
Good. We found churches to let it did that 5 days a week or 7 days a week, gave us whole sections. That's where we have nonstop appointments, social activities, night meetings. It's our part of the church. You know, they're sitting on those big, huge deals when we're not in, quarantine, of course.
Right.
All right. But I'm just saying that, not to say, look for other ways to accomplish,
Yeah.
meet the expenses of a good deal. The big thing is getting across, just given what I know, and I may not be right on this, right? Because I'm just going by what you said. But if I am right, you got an agency that you're working for that likes to have clients, right?
Yeah.
You might want to talk to them about, this time I spend running these meetings and all that that's going to create clients for you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Definitely.
Not to mention, then you throw down, not to mention the public, you realize that you are the only people in this city that is approaching this way.
Exactly.
Okay? You can put that on your website. You can talk to the mayor about it. You can blow some doors down with this.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? So, it's all to play. I hope it helps some. All right?
Oh, definitely.
Does that
Definitely.
make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It definitely makes sense.
The reaching out is we use the reaching out as an example with the restaurant. You can also do it with churches. Even if you're not located at a church, the churches, the preachers are every day getting calls. Hey, my 18-year-old, I'm getting ready to send them off somewhere. My 13-year-old is, we've tried every medication on the planet, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So they get those. If they know you're doing this and it's totally unique and nobody else is doing it, that's a plus. But you got to find somebody who has time to get out there and do it. And, again, parents at times can create those leads. Somebody has to go take a visit. You might need to convince your agency that this visit is an important thing also.
Yeah.
So that they start to embrace their new venue in a way and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Michelle and James, does any of this match up with what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so I've already, in the work that I've done with the Recovery High School, when we've done field trips, I've solicited free food for the kids from the local restaurants. And it's amazing how sympathetic their story is, right? Like you describe to someone, these are kids that come from low-income families and we're taking them on a field trip and we'd like to take them to lunch afterwards, which would motivate them to come on the field trip at all. Right. And they throw food at us. Like, what do you need? Just tell us what you need. Do you also want soda? Do you want fries with that? And so
I go in and lie all the time, just keep myself fed. Yeah. I know this old man who doesn't have any food.
It's funny, when I first started doing this, John, my 15-year-old jokes about this. When I first started asking the restaurants for food, I was telling her, maybe they'll give us a discount, or, maybe they'll give us, something, a little something. And now I say, we're never going to that restaurant. They wouldn't give us any free food.
Yeah, hey, we got a little something we want to talk to you about. You may want to donate, or things may get a little rough around here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so and then the rent idea. So my goal is to get a space for the kids to reliably be able to go to after school. For example, on Wednesdays, the recovery school kids get out at noon. That's a lot of time until mom and dad get home after work for them to get into some trouble. And so would love to have just a hangout space, kind of an open door policy. So the getting off the ground, the church's the space for meetings would be great. But I think at some point we need to have an address for the kids.
The churches, historically, we've called that a day center or a satellite.
Okay.
In history, that's what it's been
Mhm.
termed. There are
Okay.
some other terms, but those are the ones I guess I'm most familiar with. When you're talking to churches, you can talk to them about that. A lot of them have dead space all day, 5 days a week that they can't do anything.
Yeah.
In the beginning, they'll want you to share it, all right, with time. And the same thing happens for churches, like to be able to say, look at what we're doing to help people. Okay.
Yeah.
You get a
Yeah.
group going there. My office at Memorial Drive Church, I have had for 21 years free. Right.
Wow.
The other high school in Generation Found began.
Mm-hmm.
We took almost a half of a floor for free for 4 years building that high school up before it moved to its own digs. All right. The reason why they did that is because they're churches. They want to help, and they could see this was happening. One of the tricks to this is letting the churches know the impact you're having on lives.
Yeah.
I got a referral day before yesterday from a church. The way we're organized is that we have a price schedule for individuals and the meetings. Okay, and it's a pretty aggressive one. Individual is $150 an hour. All right. Now I'm doing it, 44 years of experience and stuff, and working all over the world. $150 an hour. Meetings are $250 a month for total. Okay. However, it is sliding scale all the way down to 0. So we never have to turn anybody away. All right. Now, our facilitator that runs the meetings once a week, helps the steering committee put together social functions, and catches little bitty calls back and forth. He makes about $300 a month. It doesn't take very much to match that $300 to cover that $300 a month, if you think about it for a second. If we get bigger, he's going to be able to do more. All right. What about your intern, Wendy, for example, or the people and some of the folks. So, and that's just one way of doing it. If I wanted to, and please remember who's doing that. It's an old guy who's been doing it forever. I know my days are numbered, and I only have 20 or 30 years to go. And so there are things that I just don't want to hassle with right now. I just really, what I'm interested in is this kind of thing and what's happening around the country. The adult APG is kind of an on the side thing. So I'm not, if I were 50 years old or 60 and building this thing up again, I would have it under the nonprofit. All right. I'd have these sliding scales there. Just because you're nonprofit doesn't mean you can't charge anything. It just means you can't be on the board. I would have that. I would activate the board. I'd put it under the nonprofit, and away we'd go. You know what I mean? And charging those amounts don't keep you from seeking nonprofit funding. Also, if it's under a nonprofit, it has been done under profit making, though. Also, okay. So there's a lot of things you can do on this, and we have done it all. And the big thing if you go nonprofit, if you're going to be ethical, and you want to be ethical, because it will bite you. I mean, you're going to have trouble anyway. I don't care if you are ethical. Get ready. We work with people that get mad and don't like to hear sometimes what we got to say. And some of them have gone really, really dysfunctional. And they will blame you for the pain in their life. That will happen, you know. And by the way, they also lie. That'll happen too. They'll lie about you. You know, the bigger you are, the more apt you are to have this happen. The longer you do it, the more apt, because it's just a percentages game. So you want to, what you do want to do is you want to make sure you're organized beyond reproach. Okay. That means if you're going to be and use nonprofit, you have a real board and you are not on it. And whatever you get paid, they decided. Okay? That's the big secret. Under the law, actually, you can be on the board of your own nonprofit kind of thing. It sets you up for big problems. Don't do it. Doing it above reproach also has some problems. If you get a crazy board member and they decide that they want to do it different, you've got to find a way to battle that out to keep them from taking it down some sort of primrose path.
Right.
Also, somebody can get out, you know, one of those crazy people can get on your board and they come after you, you know, and you put 20, 30 years into it and find yourself fired, you know.
Right.
That can happen. That can happen. That can happen in profit making too, you know, unless you're the dead owner and you don't have any other investors or anything else. But even then, stuff can come out of the government. Next thing you know, managed care walks in and your 4 residential programs are not allowed to take anybody ever the next 8 years. You know, no reason. It's that way across the country. It's not just your group, it's every group, everywhere, every residential program, you know. And guess what? All of that has to be reorganized, redone, and, you know, lots and lots of things can happen. So choosing one path or another doesn't protect you. But you do want to do everything you can to be beyond reproach. And that nonprofit, the biggest issue is don't be on the board and have a board. No conflict of interest between the board. Profit making, you don't have to worry too much about that. You know, it's like you do whatever. You can be profit making and still do sliding scale. You know, and you just don't have to mess with the board, and you don't have to go out and seek funds, and you don't have to. So those are different ways of approaching. Is any of this giving y'all any ideas?
Yeah. We did go ahead or I went ahead and got us a business license, so we're set up as a for-profit right now.
All right, good.
Yeah, not with the intention of making a profit, but
I understand. But you gotta eat. You know, you gotta eat. You got rents to pay. You got all sorts of stuff. The other thing you can do, by the way, is you can have both. You can have a nonprofit that runs at the side of the profit-making thing, covering things that the profit-making can't touch. Again, as long as you're not on that board, it's totally ethical. There's nothing wrong with it. The nonprofit, for example, I took 50 kids to, while we were in this mixed we had profit making that was covering the clinical elements, and we had a nonprofit that was covering things that we couldn't, you know, that just couldn't be covered. And there was some exposure in some of the things we were doing. I took 50 kids down to Copper Canyon in Mexico. Okay. There's a little exposure there. All right. Well, instead of us doing it, the nonprofit did it. And there were kids who couldn't, you know, and we were able to take medicines down to the Tarahumara Indians. It was a great trip. We made several trips, actually. It's before Mexico got really dangerous. We ended up with a residential program down there of our own, you know, outside of Chihuahua City because of it. By the way, Chihuahua has over 1 million people in it. Chihuahua is a big urban area. It's really a trip. Anyhow, so the kids will still talk about it. They share pictures online all the time, you know, all sorts of stuff. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. One of the other tricks to it is, and this is one of the reasons I started doing this class,
Mm-hmm.
Over time, I'm a little bit slow learner, but over time, I have noticed that we get calls from people after problems have started up. You know, it's like, we don't know what to do. We can't get past this, or we did this, or da da da. And I go, well, talk to your steering committee. They go, we don't have a steering. What's a steering committee? And I went,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
well, if we'd have heard that things were having problems along the way, maybe we could have avoided it becoming a big mess. You know, that's part of
Yeah.
what we're trying to do here also. And although this one has strayed a little bit from steering committee, but it's okay, I guess.
Right. Yeah,
Why not?
because for me, this was great information, especially about the nonprofit and not being on the board and possibly, you know, thinking about starting a LLC.
Mhm.
So this was certainly, you know, good information for me.
Yeah. All right. Any last minute things we need to cover today? Any questions as you're going towards the group? I would suggest this. Each week, if you will think, this is something I'm going to do. You don't have to do it all at one time. You do it one thing at a time. If each week, you know, just like you did, James, where you actually talk to people about being on steering committee. All right. Each week, pick a little something that you're going to add and make part of the process, you know, as you move ahead,
Mm-hmm.
as you're going into the week. And then when we come back next week, share what you did and how it went, etc. And guys, any suggestions you have that we can do to make this more helpful, man, you let me know. Okay.
Right.
This has been great.
This has been great. I'm just hoping to just to be able to eventually, maybe you can send me an email of some things that I can maybe give to this person who's agreed to be on the steering committee. Just some like things that she can expect on being on the steering committee, because I've told her that I'm going to have some information for her. And
yeah, like what she's agreeing to, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Do you have that worksheet that we were looking at last week?
I do. Yes, I do.
Okay. Maybe if you could take that worksheet and flesh it into what to expect. One thing that I don't think is on that worksheet is you ultimately this is the family group, right?
yes.
Right. This is
All right.
yes.
Typically, family group, once you get it going, about once a month, all right, you'll have something called a purpose. You can call it whatever you want to. In fact, let them name what it is, all right? And what this is a chance to sit with you and have their own meeting where they share something they may be terrified about, something they're confused with, you know, something like that. Because they're going to feel a lot of pressure in those meetings because they're running the meetings and giving it to other people. They will have a tendency sometimes to posture, all right? And not always is it a bad idea. There's nothing wrong with them saving, you know, those kind of things a little bit to a more appropriate time. But they'll need some guidance, a little bit tighter guidance from you. And if you, hey, look, it's Joe. Joe from Las Vegas, yo, dude. How are you, man?
Good. Nice to see you.
I'm good. Are you coming in for the class?
Yeah, I think you started. I think it starts at 11 o'clock your time, 10 o'clock my time. Is that right?
Yeah. What time do you have there?
10 o'clock on the nose.
Ah, well, you know what? I think that are you Mountain Standard?
Pacific.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it's 2 hours different.
Oh.
We're
am I
just
early?
finishing up.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, sure. Guys, he knew the whole time. I know this guy. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late.
Man, I thought it was 10. I thought we were an hour different. My mistake.
It's all right. I was the scared one. I was going, oh no, what have I done? Oh no. I can do junk like that. Well, listen, we recorded the meeting today.
Okay.
And so I'll pass that on to you as soon as I figure out how to do that. All right. Get it to you so you can watch it and everything. We were just closing. That's one of the things to make sure you take that sheet on the steering committees and it'll kind of flesh out they're expected, it's not big. They're expected to run meetings. They're expected to support you. They're expected to bring you information. They're expected to disseminate some information from you, those kind of things. And then time-wise, the big thing is about once every 3 weeks or 4 weeks, they'll have a meeting with you to talk about where we're going, what troubles we're having, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Okay.
Historically, it's been called a purpose, an ORP, all sorts of different things, that meeting. If you have adolescents or younger or older group, adolescents or young adults, usually you'll have that purpose every 2 weeks. You have 2 of them a month.
I wonder if it might be helpful and if it's possible for James to sit in on a Lifeway meeting, on an AAPG meeting that you or someone from your organization is running.
I think he would, but being adolescents, like I said, Friday morning I have the board meeting with the association, and James, would you shoot me an email to remind me to put that on the agenda? And what I'll try to do is I'll talk to George Youngblood or Life Giving Life up in Conroe about, especially George. George has steering committee and all that kind of stuff. And I'll talk to him about maybe, sitting in virtually on what they're doing right now. How about that? Because it'll be adolescents and families of adolescents.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to see how that steering committee member is running the meeting, to kind of see what roles the facilitator and the steering committee member.
If you will send me a message, I'll try to remember. Notice they try to remember. This is the old dude again. Try to remember to insinuate.
It's not just being old.
I'll try to put it into the board, into the agenda rather. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Joe, I'm sorry, dude.
All right, me too.
I'm going to see. I've never recorded one of these and made it available. So I've got it. I punched record. It's supposed to be recording, and what I'll do is I will shoot it to you.
All right.
And I'm going to try and do it right now so that you got this hour blocked out. You'll have something you can fill. I know you don't have anything to do, so you can fill it in.
All right. Well,
it may be a spot you go to watch it or something. I don't know how have y'all ever shared a recorded Zoom meeting?
No.
It should be a link. It should just be a link.
Okay. All right.
You should just be able to email me over the link.
All right. All right. Well, that's what I'll do. I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Love you too. Thank you.
We will build this thing. And notice I said, we will build this thing.
All right. See you guys.
All right.
John, quick question. Is this weekly, and will you be sending out the notification weekly?
Every week. Yeah.
Great.
Every week at 11 o'clock Central Time.
All right.
Okay, great. So
duly noted.
It was not aimed at you. Wear it if it fits.
okay,
right.
just add me to the email because Leah actually sent it to me.
I'm getting ready to do that right now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Love you guys. Talk to you later.
Love you too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.